is more stressful now though that the cameras are on.
No stress, boy.
All right, we'll give it a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's absolutely go. It is that time of the year. The time where we start our own podcast. Who am I here with today?
What's up, my brother? You good?
How are you doing, my boy?
Easy, Maji. How you doing?
No, I am fantastic.
Oh, yeah. So, by way of introduction, my name is KK. I go by KK. If you want to be going full out, Kamvelihle, but you can just stick with KK.
No, full out is Mr. President.
Oh, wait.
Are you not telling them who you are?
Yeah.
No, this is Mr. President. See, me and KK go a while back.
Yeah.
All the way to our young days
2013, grade 7.
in the uniform.
Yeah.
The good old tie. But I thought it would be amazing to have you here today. A very big moment for me and for where I want to go in life, and to have you here as someone that was there in my foundational years. We were leaders back in the day. Now only one of us are a leader. And
not quite, bro.
I think you just need to give the people a bit of an introduction to who you are before we dive into what we plan to speak about today.
Sure, why not, bro? So first of all, welcome everyone. Hi to the audience and the guests. Thanks for having me on your platform, bro. I'm the one who's actually honored to be here. Nickname, everyone just calls me KK, as you know. Full name, as I said, Kamvelihle. Where am I from? We went back to school. We were studying together back in Pretoria, from early primary through the way to high school. Now I'm actually at university doing my honors degree, finishing off my BCom economics. To be more specific, and then on the side, I think you touched on it a little bit here. On the side, we do some leadership here.
Tell them, don't be shy.
Yeah. So in my varsity, there's this honor society called Golden Key. It's actually international. So it's essentially an honor society for top performing academic students. It goes across 400 different universities. So I was privileged and humble enough to serve as the president there. Last year, and then this year I serve as a South African representative to facilitate where we can improve student lives, assist with bursaries, work exposure overseas, and all those kind of things. But yeah, you touched on the leadership aspect of it, but in a nutshell, that's me. Very simply, I'm just a guy with a yellow hoodie and positive vibes.
Hey, let's go. And yellow is all about positivity. So we're going to say to our audience out there, hey, you, have a great day.
Shout out.
And just as being a leader, I think the biggest thing that I've come across in my last couple of years moving away from high school, which you would have also experienced naturally, is that we are all diverse. That is the key. And it's the key to developing as people, developing as countries, developing as places. Wherever we may go, we require that diversity.
Yes,
but
sir.
The one central theme to all of us is mental health, physical health, the problems that come with that. And I want to hear, before I touch on my own experience about mental health, how have you found it? But firstly, within your family during high school, we come from two different backgrounds.
Sure.
But I have felt that our parents as a whole struggle to deal with and speak about mental health. So how did you experience that during your high school years and developing mechanisms or ideas about what anxiety is, or if there was even that?
Sure. Now, I think it's a very, very important question that you're asking, bro, because if you think about it, everything starts with the mind, you know.
Yeah.
Even when you wake up in the morning, your mindset is everything. It actually sets the tone for how you go about your day, you know.
100%.
Everything you need to be doing. So in my case, man, mental health really kind of came into light after high school. Like, I didn't even know there was a thing called mental health. You
right?
need to watch your mental health. We just know the whole thing of make sure you don't get sick. If you're sick, go eat some oranges, have some vitamins and all that. But
have a cup of cement.
You get me, bro.
You got to feel better.
You see?
Like, why are you sick?
Exactly,
why are you feeling
bro.
like that?
So there was never a discussion about mental health to begin with. Talking about families and backgrounds, I don't even think maybe our parents were particularly knowledgeable of things to do with mental health to the extent that we know them today. So I kind of learned more about it more in varsity. Oh, there's something called mental health. This is what it is. This is how you need to watch out for it and take care of it. So that's how I actually decided to educate myself on mental health. And you note that it's actually a big thing that isn't talked about enough. So coming to mechanisms, bro, I think it's very important to explore yourself and really learn ways in which you need to guard your mental state.
Yeah.
Remember, I said at the beginning, everything starts with your mind. So you need to be very critical about what you expose yourself to, be it the people in your circle, be it the content you consume. And I think social media, to some extent, can be a big contributing factor to mental health.
Yeah, because we always want to consume.
Exactly.
There is this need for consumption and to feel instant gratification.
Exactly, bro.
So I think that also might be a problem.
Yeah.
Why we also don't realize it is a problem, because we kind of cloud it through instant gratification.
Sure.
I come home, I've had a long day.
Yeah.
What do I need to do before going to bed? I don't want to deal with maybe the shitty conversation I had with my boss or a teacher or whoever it may be. So what do? I scroll and I scroll and I scroll to the point where I kind of just push it down and let my mind be consumed by something else.
Exactly. And crucially, what are you consuming, you know?
That's
so
important.
There's the consumption part, but what are you also consuming? You know, we've got this generation where you've got 22-year-olds that feel like failures, bro. And at 22, your life is just starting out.
Which is sad, right?
It's crazy, bro.
Because if you think of it, that's where we are right now. And another problem is, just because somebody is attempting to do things that you aren't doing, it doesn't mean you're failing.
Exactly, bro.
So bringing you on here, obviously you are really, I would say, in the top 1% of people our age, in the sense that you are reaching to something that is outside of what we do, but it is inside of what you do.
Precisely, bro.
So you've always had a passion throughout high school. Like how I've known you is, you're a public speaker, you're somebody that wants to help people, you have been a leader, right? So that is your journey.
Sure.
But me also starting a podcast now doesn't mean that someone that has only 200, 300 followers is failing with what they're putting out there.
Exactly.
It's also about what you have inside. And I think that's where mental health also gets really, what is the word I'm looking for? Forgotten or overlooked, because we kind of miss the fact that the way society is built in the modern age is like, I'm trying to be you, you're trying to be me, and that gives me a lot of anxiety.
Sure. And you can never be someone else, bro. You know, there's something unique to who Kaskin is, you know, whether it's his makeup, his mindset, his charisma, his traits, his personality, his qualities. No one can ever try to be a Kaskin or anyone else for that matter. And that's how I feel like social media plays a role in that, because everyone's trying to fit this image, you know, whether it's a trend or slang you should adopt or ways you should look or things you should be achieving. Social media has kind of modeled this goal or target of what everyone should aspire for. And it's not realistic because we're all different, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why you find that there's so many people that feel like failures as a result of the social media consumption, because it's all we're consuming all the time. So I think in some ways that can also play a part in mental health and why people feel like such failures. And even though life's actually still starting out, you already feel like you're on the back foot.
Yeah. And we will touch on this a bit later.
Sure.
But obviously, we have upped our awareness of mental health, but we haven't upped our accountability of our own mental health. And we'll touch on accountability later. But let me know right now, how did that change look for you? So what happened with me was I had trauma that pushed my mental health.
Right.
So as you guys know, my friends, and for some of the people following me, I used to have epilepsy in high school, and obviously I never dealt with the mental toughness of what that health trauma did to me. So what happened was, I used to never know what anxiety felt like. I used to sit sometimes at school, and I look back at this the other day and feel really like almost in a tunnel. And I would be like, oh, that's probably just me, like, you know, having a bad day. But I never actually looked at there was a activation. There was a triggering point to why I felt like that being my health trauma.
There's a pattern.
Yeah, there's a pattern. And what happened was, it got to a point where it came so extreme that I was on a holiday with my dad and that side of the family, and it's just this holiday to celebrate his 50th birthday, and obviously alcohol was involved, but it got to the point where I had such an extreme panic attack because of alcohol, and I've never been a big drinker, as you would know. And obviously under some environments you put yourself into certain places that you don't want to be in. So for me, never restricting alcohol came up in my head, but I
Sure.
needed to. I needed to
Yeah.
at some point tell myself, bro, you've got to really take a step to do what's best for you and stop drinking. And it got to the point where I had such an extreme panic attack while being drunk that
Yeah.
that was the cutoff for me.
Sure.
To realize I've got mental health to deal with, because that panic attack did not come from the alcohol, but the same feeling of not being in control, feeling like I'm going to fall over, like epilepsy, to the point now where I've been sober because of that. It's not an accomplishment to be sober. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, again, that is personal to me, and
Sure.
it's something I needed to achieve. So what was your like activation triggering for you to actually realize, shit, like mental health is like real, man, like
Yeah.
I experience it?
Sure. Now, I think in a way it even links up to what you were saying, because I would summarize it by saying we're so focused on being aware of what other people or other things are taking place, but we're not self-aware.
Yeah.
Right. So self-awareness is where all of that tends to start from.
Yeah.
I always say to people, forget about the what, look at the why. So this happened, cool, but why did it happen, and what is the cause of that?
100%.
So in my case, man, I always used to observe myself. I think particularly end of high school, bro. I always felt a little bit down, man.
Yeah, like that. Just
Yeah, like you're not particularly in the zone. You can't exactly tangibly pinpoint why that's the case,
but you feel there's a feeling.
Yeah, so you feel really down and you feel a little bit under the weather, but you can't really give a tangible reason why.
Yeah.
So in high school as well, I think everyone knew me as this bundle of light and energy, which was cool.
Always being able to give to other people.
Precisely,
But
bro.
what's really happening, like when you can't give?
Precisely, you know what I mean? So I had to dive back and ask myself, okay, why? Why am I feeling a little bit down? What's making me feel under the weather? And this will be different for different people. It could be related to past trauma that you've had. It can be maybe related to pressure that you put on yourself to achieve certain things. In my case, it was more of what am I doing with my time? Why am I here? Am I progressing? Time is moving.
But am I moving?
Exactly, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or
I get
where am
you.
I heading? And after high school, bro, there's always this thing of you need to have your life sorted out. You know what I mean?
Which is so stupid.
Yeah. What are you studying? What career are you getting into?
It's crazy, right?
You see, so I think in the high school, I always asked myself, where am I going? And I couldn't particularly give a pinpointed answer. Some people would summarize it in the word purpose.
Yeah.
And I think when you use the word purpose, you make it sound like this big macro vision where you know what you're doing in the next 20 years. But for me, the answer to that was just maximizing every opportunity that presents itself to me. And in that way, I actually found I was living a purpose-driven life,
Yeah.
So,
So to you, it was about honesty.
yeah.
Honesty with yourself.
Exactly. And figuring out, what do I want? Where am
Yeah.
I heading? What are my interests? And what do I need to do to give myself a sense of belonging? Like I'm doing what I'm made to do in a way. You know what I mean?
And I do feel that we are all made to do something. And we all have things that we enjoy. But I love that point of purpose does sometimes make it feel like there is this macro vision that we all need to
Yeah.
achieve. And I feel that we kind of, a lot of the time, make our own mental health and anxiety worse because we feel like we can't get there.
You see what I mean?
And it's not about getting there. It's about this realization and this honesty that I am already here in this space that I can do things.
Sure.
And it's about doing more of those things.
Yeah.
And then through doing those things, you can actually say, well, that's what I want to be doing.
Precisely.
And I think just touching on that, I don't know how you feel about it, but I've always said that your mental health loves isolation. And I feel as men especially, obviously everyone has a nature to isolate, but as men where there's not that many people speaking about mental health,
Or
there's not that
platforms
many
of support.
yeah, like we really minimize to where we go. So coming out of high school, there's this whole like toxic masculinity, like you've got to be strong, and it is good to be strong. There's nothing wrong about that, but strong looks different on different days. And I think that realization, in the sense that you don't need to isolate, also makes whatever is causing you to feel anxious a bit easier.
Sure.
Because honesty allows the realization that I shouldn't isolate. When you're not honest with yourself, you isolate. So have you ever found yourself isolating yourself from anybody else, like family, from people around you, from your work? I mean, you're a leader, so you have to deal with people on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
You have to be a good leader, as they say.
Yeah.
Cliche is always leading from behind.
Sure.
Allowing other people's, you're creating a foundation. You're more of a mentor, in a sense, that you want to allow people to expand themselves.
Sure.
And that's what I'm trying to do. But how can you do that if you are isolating yourself?
Yeah, definitely, bro. I have felt like some instances where you have to isolate yourself. You touched on it, where you're a leader. So I've always felt that everyone comes to me for help,
And where do you go?
You see what I mean, bro?
Yeah.
So I always feel like I'm maybe trying to carry everyone else's load, but there's probably no one carrying my load. So in that essence, you don't have a support structure, so you feel like isolating, you know what I mean?
And sorry to put you on the spot now.
Please put me on the spot.
Do you
bro.
feel like that, in a sense, is your fault? In a way that you have created this personality? Because a lot of time I look at how hard ass I am about my mental health, but I'm like, you manifested this personality.
Sure.
You wanted to be the person that helps people.
Sure.
So how do you, as a leader, kind of do you blame someone, or do you kind of blame yourself? What was it for you?
Now, in my way, I think everyone creates an image of themselves.
Yes.
Right? So if you create this image where you are quote unquote indestructible, it creates this perception that you don't need help, and in essence, everyone creates their own image, so I'd be responsible for that, you know what I mean? So in some ways, I would say I do play a role in that, because it's the image I project, you know what I mean?
But at the same time, the real ones didn't actually reach beyond where they should have. I always say the real ones will look to go beyond that.
Sure.
But it does get difficult. I had a conversation with one of our mutual friends. I won't bring them up because it's a podcast.
Sure.
One of our friends that doesn't really speak that much about mental health, and we know him as someone that is quiet, and he has everything sorted out. He's in a good life and a good direction. But the other day he reached out when I just asked, how are you, for the first time in probably like 6 years, saying that, I've actually been struggling.
Sure.
So that's where I want to come on and just say, do you think as well that honesty about, like, also just kind of putting yourself out there to be vulnerable would help in dealing with that mental health?
100%.
And did it help you?
100%, man. In fact, what I've actually learned to establish a structure where I can have a support structure or a support system of some sort, And look, man, everyone is human,
Yeah.
Everyone has weak days or challenges where they need an extra hand, So it's very important that you create a stream of support for yourself, whether it's with friends that you go to, whether it's with hobbies that keep you occupied, or even something that just gives you an extra sense of dopamine, just to keep you excited
and that's
and keep you
important,
happy.
right?
You know what I mean?
People don't realize how big dopamine affects.
Exactly, bro. And why are you here in life if you're not having fun or enjoying yourself every now and then? That's actually the point of everything,
100%.
And if I think you're enjoying yourself and maximizing your fulfillment in life, it's actually a way of dealing with mental health as well. You keep yourself mentally stimulated and boosted and happy, bro.
Stimulated in the right ways again.
Exactly,
because that scrolling and this need to consume stimulates you in a way that dopamine is reduced.
Sure.
So your need for dopamine almost gets further away from you the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's crazy, bro. So we definitely all need some form of support structure,
Yeah.
I know we live in this world where it's like, oh, don't trust anyone,
Yeah, everyone's toxic. But we are all toxic.
In some ways, everyone
But that's
is to some
again
extent.
where honesty comes in.
And self-accountability and
Yeah,
being self-aware,
100%.
But everyone definitely needs some form of go-to where they can be vulnerable, where they can be open about the challenges they have. And I would advise people to seek help,
Yeah.
with whether it's just a friend that you trust, a family member, whatever the case may be. And that's actually what
Yeah.
is a way of addressing these things, bro. But definitely 100%. In my case, I would actually say that it's part of what helped me become even stronger and better,
Stronger, yeah.
because on days where I feel a little bit down, I've got someone I can go to and speak to about these things. No one's invincible, bro.
No one is.
So we all need to have a sense of a safe haven, if I can call it that, bro, where we go and we can just be ourselves and feel free, bro.
That's really cool to hear. So I think a central theme around all of this is accountability. And one of the most important traits of a leader is to be accountable,
100%.
because you are firstly accountable for your actions. You cannot just preach and not practice.
100%.
And you are accountable for the people around you, because you know that you are building a team. Wow, that's interesting. You see, we're actually speaking about how you can have a podcast that isn't perfect, and almost lost the light here. But I'll be accountable for that one.
Shout out, boy.
No, anyways. So how and why? Actually, it's more of a why. It's not a how. Why do you think, first of all, our generation is labeled as not being accountable? And I think you've witnessed it firsthand, because I have as well. But why do you think we are not accountable? Is there a main reason, or do you think it goes from person to person?
No, you know how I would answer this, man. I think there's advantages and benefits to everything, right?
Yeah.
If you observe our generation, we're very much a generation that promotes inclusivity in every facet.
Everything,
right?
yeah.
And acceptance and accommodating every single trait or behavior of every person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in some ways, as good as it is to promote a sense of global acceptance,
Yeah.
in some ways I think we need to find a balance where we're not just accepting behaviors that probably aren't good, or behaviors that might be toxic, So sometimes I think we focus so much on accepting everything and accepting everyone, which is very good, but we need to find a balance where we're not accepting toxic traits.
Yeah, so you almost believe that we are accountable. We're promoting accountability, but we're promoting a certain accountability that includes traits and behavior that aren't accountable.
Precisely.
So it's like a double-edged sword now. Like we are accountable, and we're showing like the rest of the world, look, we are allowing all these people to express themselves and be themselves. But if we're allowing them to be themselves, to a certain degree, are they not restricting somebody else from being themselves in their behavior or the way they are? So you actually feel that we are accountable, but it's in a negative way sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, man. I think there's a balance to be found in these things. Like I say, advantages and disadvantages. One advantage about everything that we're promoting is that we allow a safe space for everyone to exist and be themselves in their most true and authentic self.
Which is beautiful.
Exactly. And
because
we need to keep doing that.
We're starting to see young people changing the world.
Exactly. And we need to keep doing that.
Yeah.
But we need to also be careful of not allowing or promoting toxic traits that probably aren't necessarily things that are good behaviors that we should be promoting. So I think it's a fine line of balance, and that's probably why it's difficult for us to be accountable sometimes. I think it goes back to that self-awareness and self-introspection.
Yes. So it's almost like this idea of accountability is just, we are accountable, so I don't have to be accountable.
Exactly.
So that's where it becomes a very important introspective view on yourself and how are you accountable. Because if there's this whole view now that young people are reaching out, we're actually changing the world, we're doing this, we're doing that, but I'm sitting on my phone at home commenting negative comments on someone that's trying to change the world, how am I being accountable? So that accountability does not fit into me being accountable.
Exactly.
So do you think that maybe that's a big problem as well?
Yeah, I think I would summarize everything as being self-aware, bro. Self-introspection. We are not a generation that does enough self-introspection. We're very quick to say, oh, that's not right, or that's not good, you should change or do that. So that's accountability in that sense. But I don't think we do enough of that to ourselves, In a way, it's always very easy to put the blame on someone else, but it's very difficult to own up to your mishaps and your own toxic traits.
Which is a big thing, right?
You see? So a lot of us don't do that in some way. We're very fixated on what other people are doing wrong or pointing the finger at what should be changed here and there. But in many ways, if everyone was to do the same thing for themselves, I think that whole topic of accountability could at least see progress in some way where we are actually being accountable.
That's interesting, because last week I wrote psychology. And as everyone knows, like, I really don't like varsity.
Sure.
I do see it as a platform for some people to grow. And like I say, just to slightly go off the road a bit, obviously some people need varsity, some people don't. You also can't say a young man or woman that has come from a poor household that are going to become the first holders of a degree in their family don't need varsity. But I also feel that sometimes people like myself and other people naturally get pushed into a degree. And we spoke about this off camera, about like how at 16 are you choosing subjects, how at 18 you have to know what you're doing with the rest of your life. But a good bit of knowledge that came to me through my psychology test about self-reflection. So self-reflection is a tool that makes us more aware, but it's built upon our social and personal competencies, which means socially, how are we with people? How are we in that sphere? And personally, what are we doing when we leave that sphere at home? And those two come together to make our emotional competencies. So that in an equation is how we transform and grow, how we bring our social and our personal into our emotional to up our intelligence. So just to not make it too technical, you have your social sphere, you have your personal sphere, what you're doing at home with yourself, how are you keeping yourself accountable, how are you keeping other people accountable when you're hearing conversations about racism or prejudice or discrimination? Are you actually saying something, or are you just sitting around? And that ups your emotional competencies, so your level or your capacity to actually look at yourself and your life and be accountable. And that's how we transform and grow. So I think the key is self-reflection.
100%.
But within that, it's about realizing what that is to you and what that is to me.
It's different for different people.
And that's just accountability. That's interesting. So as a leader, is it true, or is it just a bit of a cliche that accountability is key to everything you do?
It's definitely key, because if you think about it, every day you wake up, you're trying to be a better version of yourself before, right? And the key root or ingredient in that is accountability, You need to look back and say, okay, fine, what am I doing that's holding me back? Maybe it's a character flaw, maybe it's a mindset you have on something. But in order for you to grow and become a better person and progress, there needs to be that tool of accounting for who you are and the things you do. And you need to do so very honestly, Sit back and say, okay, fine, this is what I did. How could I have handled things better? What did I learn from that experience? What made things worse? But of course, give yourself credit. What did you do right? And what helped things get better, know? But I think in leadership, and not even just to leadership, it's about people in general, If you're going to grow and be a better person, improve yourself, there needs to be that element of unlearning traits 100%. That hold you back, And that's the most difficult part of growth, is the unlearning part.
Realizing that we've been conditioned in ways that actually aren't healthy.
Exactly, bro.
And again, that I also believe that, like, a lot of people in my DMs or in my comments, like, I'm not promoting a toxic family environment. Don't take this the wrong way. I am speaking about, like, my parents are, like, the way my parents are. Yes, we all have parents that have ways. They are doing the best with what they have at the end of the day.
And the knowledge they have.
And the knowledge they have. So now it is on us to develop that. And I always say, when I'm speaking to my girlfriend about, like, the possibility of having children one day and getting married and all these things, the central thing I speak about is I hope that our kids, if I'm grateful enough to be there one day, will develop past what I have given them.
Sure.
Because otherwise, how are we developing the world?
Precisely.
So for you to think about that and be like, my parents maybe weren't good enough in all aspects, is good. Mm-hmm. You're holding them accountable. Sure. But how are you being accountable to change that?
Exactly.
And I think that's basically what you're saying is like unlearning, unconditioning.
Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to unlearn, because if you think about it, it becomes a pattern that you develop and
over
that
your
you get used to,
years of being around people and your parents.
Exactly. And maybe to you, those things are normal and they're good. And it takes just one key experience as a wake-up call to be like, hang on, maybe this isn't such a normal thing to be doing, you know. And now you've got to go back and unlearn all those traits. It's probably a habit that you've had. So unlearning is very, very difficult to do, but it's a core ingredient in growth, you know. There's things that maybe you adopt, whether it's a mindset, a character flaw, traits that you have that aren't necessarily the most positive things in the world to have. So the unlearning part is the most difficult part of growth, I would say. That is very essential.
That is so true. Yeah. So just on the topic of purpose and this whole grand thing which we spoke about earlier, I think that scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been scared of the word purpose, and I think a lot of what people believe in, possibly religiously, culturally, has all these different versions of what purpose looks like that no one really knows what it is. So what I've come down to is we all know within our heart there's something that we really want to chase. Whatever that may be, whatever you may call it, there is something that we want to chase, and we will express ourselves through that chase or through experiencing that. And from a psychology point and conditioning, I've always felt that you have to obviously disappoint people if you're going after that chase, because that's what you need in your life. And the reason I say that you're going to disappoint people, and you have to disappoint people, some people are unfortunately never going to unlearn the conditioning, so they're always going to question why you're going after that chase. Where I have this mentality now, which I didn't have 4 or 5 years ago, I really just want everybody to win. I hope that whatever your journey may be, is that you win at that journey.
Go out there and win, bro.
So one of my followers, Lucy, asked this question, and I would like your perspective on this whole picture that we're painting about going after that and disappointing people. But how do you put your own needs first without feeling bad about it, especially as a leader where you can't necessarily always put your own needs first? How does that look for you?
Well, shout out to Lucy first for the great question, man. I think the first thing I would say is, before you even get started on that, understand that it's impossible to please everyone, you know. Everyone, if you're trying to please everyone, there's a saying that goes, if you want to make everyone happy, sell ice cream, you know. Don't chase your dreams, you know what I mean? Because there's
making me laugh now that this water went down. But I mean, you know, that is true.
You can't please everyone. And I think to actually throw a curveball out there, maybe it is a good question to ask, what kind of people do you have in your space if they don't allow you to chase what makes you happy? You know what I mean?
That's the crazy thing, right?
I think I would say, like, as a friend, one of the things I always, because I was actually speaking to a friend of mine yesterday about something he's trying to achieve and what he's going for. And I'm just like to him, dude, does it make you happy? He said, yes, it does. And I'm like, then job done, you know what I mean? And he's asking me, what about my parents? What about my friends? What are they going to think? And that's a trap that you put yourself where you actually paralyze your own drive. You paralyze your dreams.
By trying to
please everyone all
other
the time,
people,
you know,
and their happiness, or what their idea of happiness is.
Exactly. So to summarize, Toulouse, I'd say 2 key things, right? Number 1, introspect and evaluate the people that you have in your circle in the first place, right? Because if you're with someone and you're telling them, man, I would like to start a YouTube channel because I feel very passionate about it, and their response is, why would you want to do that? You know, there's no market for that. There's no audience for that. You don't have the character or the charisma, you know.
There's so many excuses, but...
Exactly. So what kind of space or people do you expose yourself to, you know? If that's the case. And it links back to what we're saying about mental health, where you need to be very careful about what you expose yourself to, you know, the content you consume, the people.
And you have control over a lot of that.
100%.
That's the crazy thing, right? Because your people that you decide to spend time with, it's your time.
100%.
If you decide to go out to that lunch date or that movie date or whatever it may be with a group of people that you don't really want to be around, you're always going to feel like you're looking from the outside.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's not even anxiety of, wow, like I don't like these people. Sometimes it's anxiety of, wow, I actually feel anxious, but that feeling isn't anxiety. It's just that you're never part of what they're doing. So for you, it's like this thing of obviously that inner circle.
100%, bro. And the second thing to Lucy, remember that you're never going to please everyone, you know. And I don't think you should ever paralyze yourself with what someone else is saying, or someone else's opinion of you. Of course, everyone is entitled to their own view and their own opinion, but that shouldn't paralyze you. I think once it paralyzes you, you find that you're living someone else's dream or someone else's idea of what you should be, and we're all different, so we can't all fit into the same model or subscribe to the same equation of what you should do in life and who you should be as a person.
And I think that also doesn't make the person that can't be there for you bad.
Exactly.
I think we have a very with this whole generation of inclusivity and be better and stuff. Yeah, be better, but realize not everyone can be what you need them to be.
Sure.
They need to be on their journey.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be upset for not fitting in with those people and now you're blaming those people for your life, again, that's where accountability comes in.
Sure.
They're allowed to be on their journey.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I say I hope everyone wins, because I'm on a different journey to you. You're on a different journey to me. But at the same time, we need to realize that that's okay.
Sure.
I mean, we're not talking at all anymore.
Yeah.
But when I saw you today, I was like, bro, how you been?
It was old times.
It was old times. But that's also what you got to realize. Even people that you were tight with naturally need to develop new relationships and friendships with people that are within their sphere.
It's part of growth.
And part of growth is exactly that. Again, realizing that now we're at a point again in our lives where we could connect your 100%. Journey and my journey to give people something that they possibly need. Well, we hope you need this.
Exactly.
If you don't need this, I mean, they could just switch off.
It's good for the lols anyway.
It is good. It is good.
Yeah.
I was also laughing because of the inclusivity and you saying if you want to make everyone happy, sell ice cream. But someone like me who's a bit lactose intolerant is going to be like, unless you have put a bit of a lactose-free
that can
ice cream
me,
on the
bro.
menu. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? But I'm sure we're inclusive enough to have that on the menu. Hey, we're the type of the generation that's going to have all types of ice cream.
Accommodating everyone and everything, man.
That's so important.
But I keep on what you're saying as well, man, is don't be afraid to let people go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you think
and that's tough, right?
Yeah.
Because it's tough. It does feel tough.
You're on this journey, man. And one thing I've learned with people that come in, everyone has a specific role to play, whether they teach you something, you learn something from them. But there is a time where you guys, as you are saying, you've got different journeys or destinations that you're heading to, and it's time to probably part ways in that sense. And it's not even in a bad way. It's not even
in a bad way. It's a natural way.
Precisely,
it's part of the cycle of life.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we cling on to people because of memories we've had of them and maybe how far we've been and where we've come, but that paralyzes where you're going, because you become so blindsided by the past, but you're not looking towards the future. I think my dad always has this saying when he drives, when he was teaching me to drive especially, he's like, so in the car, you've got the small rear view mirror here. It's just to glance, have a look at the experiences, remind yourself where you've been, how you've grown, and those lessons, but you're always fixated on the front big screen in front of you,
That's
the future of where you're going.
That's the bigger dream.
Precisely, man. So have that mindset and that mentality when it comes to these topics of growth and sometimes even having to outgrow people to maximize your own purpose or maximize your own fulfillment and utility in life, man,
Yeah. So to bring that all together, I've always felt that when people reach out to me on social media, obviously I'm dealing with a lot of people that have struggled with mental health, and I think to a degree we've all struggled with mental health. It's just naturally when males speak to me, it feels like there's no one to be there to speak to them about. But again, going back, what are you doing to be able to put yourself in places and around people that are there for you? And I think for anybody listening, the most important thing that our generation lacks is, I think, gratification. So our need for gratification is so instant. Like I think of when I started developing the idea of this podcast. I was like, well, I don't really need a podcast. I've developed all the social media now. I've got a slight platform, and I've almost been gratified by these numbers. And I look back at a conversation I had with someone the other day, and they were like, I did a collaborative post for their clothing brand, and they were like, bro, these numbers are crazy. They're so crazy. And I think it's also really important to just take a step back sometimes and be like, what were you searching for, and what do you already have? Gratitude is so central to where you want to be in life, because
100%.
at the end of the day, without that conversation, I would have been like so consumed by everything that is here that I would have forgot like that childishness that excited me about. It wasn't even the numbers. It was just the fact that so many people were interested in my work, that I had finally found something that connected with people. But it's not actually, the whole point of this isn't that like, damn, you know, you need to be reaching out to people and have the numbers, and that's how your purpose or whatever it may be will be fulfilled. No, what I'm saying is like, just don't ever feel the need to be instantly gratified, because like the process of looking back and going a year and a half back and like thinking in a year and a half what has happened, can you imagine what could happen in 10 years?
Exactly.
And if you also put your mindset in the place that you're actually going to realize you have time to do what you want to do in this overstimulated, overpowered, over needy society, you have time. So also, again, unlearn, but also look back in that mirror and realize there has been growth.
Exactly. And look at how far you've come. You see?
So if you were to give a bit of advice on just that whole process, like what would it look like for you, or to somebody that's scared of letting people down, to somebody that's scared of not being good enough, to somebody that feels the need to always be gratified, to somebody that is actually growing but doesn't realize by looking where they came from actually where they are still going to go, like all these things, because that's what we do, right? We always like believe that what we're doing is not good enough. So what is that to you then?
Yeah, man. In fact, I'll give a very clear, honest answer, man. You know, December, I have kind of like this routine. So December is actually my reflection month.
Yeah.
So I cut off work, I limit events you need to attend and all those things. And it's really a month of reflection for me. And I reflect on the whole year. Like everything, you know, from January, February, I look at what went well, so I can appreciate what went well.
Gratitude, eh?
Exactly, gratitude comes in there. And I look at probably where I fell short, and that's self-awareness. You know, what do I need to be doing to prevent the same mistake from taking place over and over again?
And once again, into that accountability.
Precisely.
So I can do better next year.
Exactly. So I would advise that everyone has some form of routine. It doesn't even need to be something, or every Monday I do this, but a period where you look back, you know. In fact, I've got a friend who writes goals down, right? So what he does, he also goes back and says, hey, this is a goal I wrote 5 years ago. Look how far I've come now, you know. And that helps him to recognize and appreciate how far he's come. I think we're always so fixated on chasing the next big thing that we forget how far we've come, you know. So you achieve this, your mind is already not, I need to achieve the next thing, you know. And I think sometimes I also have that character flow too, you know. I'm always
chasing.
It's like, okay,
there's not enough time,
you know. So I've done this, move on, now I need to do this. And one thing I've learned is that I need to pause sometimes and stop. And that's why I dedicated that whole month of December to be like, okay, look back, reflect. What have you achieved? What haven't you achieved? Why is the case? And the key question is why, you know, not the what. Because when you ask why, you get to the real root and cause of things.
And that's important.
Precisely, you know. If you really want to make sense of the trajectory of what's happening in your space, you need to know why. Why do I feel the way I feel? Why do I think the way I feel? Why do I act the way I act, you know? And none of us ask why. We just observe what. We observe the event, but we don't look at the chain that leads to that event.
And the what is also like, what are other people doing?
Precisely.
What am I not doing good enough?
You see.
and that's, again, like I say, it needs to become personal. Your whole process needs to become personal. It needs to be a PP, man. PP. No, it's got to be personal, man. You're not going to go like, I mean, girls go to the bathroom together. That is, but I mean, fine, that's like their way of being personal. But I'm saying naturally, you're not going to need someone to go pee with you. And I think that personal process, the PP, it needs to be personal. Because otherwise, you're always going to be focused on what might not be. What could possibly be out there. And I think that's what happened with me in social media. Was like, the worst is I was speaking to Aubrey, and he's behind the camera for no one that knows. He's
Shout out to
making
Aubrey,
sure that, shout out to the man, making sure that the VAR system for all the football players is actually working.
It's all intact, bro.
But for me, what it was like, I didn't plan to grow. So I wanted to just start helping people. And I do see how I help. And obviously, platform allows you to help more people. But what happened was I got so consumed by the number that I actually was like, what are other people doing now?
Sure.
And I was like, Kaskin, you forgot that the reason you did this was to help people. It was personal. It was, and it's weird how the switch of creating the podcast and looking to go further was more personal again.
Yeah.
How are you going to reach more people in a way that you want to reach more people?
Sure.
Not just giving them something to consume.
Yeah.
Not just giving them something for the likes and the comments and the shares, but how are you personally going to actually continue to grow what you want to do, but also in a way to help other people? And remember, not everyone has a need to help large amounts of people, but at the end of the day, I think what you're saying is, and what we're getting to is, it needs to be personal.
Precisely.
If it's not personal, then you're going to be doing it for the what and not the why.
Precisely. That's the perfect way to summarize it, bro.
If you could leave the people with one last thing on this iconic day, this pilot, would you what is the word I'm looking for? The pilot episode, as on Netflix. I always say the good episodes, episode 1 is always called pilot.
Sure.
The rest, if they don't call it pilot, it's not a good episode. So I believe that this is the pilot episode. It's this iconic moment of taking off on this journey for many people to grow, for you to grow, for me to grow, for everyone to grow. What would you leave them with as we take off on this flight? Project Losh heading to the moon.
You know what it
would
is.
you say?
I'd actually leave the audience with something that drives everything that I personally do.
Yeah.
And it's that for everything in life, there's a price to pay. And you should always be willing to pay the price for the person you want to be. Sometimes that price looks like sacrifice. Sometimes that price looks like letting go. But always be willing to pay the price that you need to pay for you to be the person you see yourself being.
That's beautiful.
So don't ever be concerned about, I don't want to let go of this. There's always a trade-off. I'm an economist, so we talk about trade-off.
Yeah, there has to be, right?
There's always something to let go of to get something better,
Yeah, you need a return on your investment.
Precisely. Yeah, there you go, bro.
ROI.
Yeah. So never be afraid to pay the price for the person you want to be. That's what I would leave them with.
KK, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Buddy.
I hope that we can bring you back one day when we have not reached the moon, because once we get to the moon, we're going to have to go to the next planet.
You know what it is, bro.
There's levels to this game.
Project Mars, bro.
Project Mars, then. I do appreciate you being here. And to everyone at home, thank you for joining this journey. And damn, it is exciting times. And if you didn't realize, there is a little cheeky
very nice
Easter egg here for the family that
nice
that might come. I'm not going to show you too much, but there's something at the back as well about just embracing your inner kid and just where you want to be going. But thank you so much, and have a great day, great evening, or great morning.